Hey guys, welcome to The Bottom Half is Red. I'm your host, Barron Longstreth, and I am excited to bring to you a show that is going to give you some thought-provoking discussions. It's going to give you some expert insights to both encourage and some practical steps for how to build an organization that can more effectively introduce the world to Jesus Christ. So what is The Bottom Half is Red? It's all about building a culture of excellence. It's about growing your unique and creative identity. And it's about carrying out the will of God at any cost. So you're going to see that through practical teaching tips, developing a culture of giving, creating branding and marketing, or even methods to help guests feel safe and welcomed. This podcast is going to have you covered. But before we dive into today's episode, I want to take just a moment and extend a special invitation to all of our dedicated listeners. If you're looking to get even more involved in our community and gain some access to some behind-the-scenes stuff, become a Patreon supporter. And you can find that link in the episode description or even on Patreon. Just visit The Bottom Half is Red. Listen, we can't wait to welcome you on board and to share this exciting journey. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Bottom Half is Red. I hope you have been enjoying the Faces of Culture. We are here to introduce you to another episode of the series that we're involved in right now that I particularly have been enjoying. Today we have in studio our Sunday school pastors, and they are phenomenal. You're going to hear about their passion for children's ministry. We hope you enjoy. Lock in. We got a great episode.
All right, Billy and Bridget, you guys are the children's pastors for the church today. The first thing that we should ask you is, what exactly is the children's pastor? Can you talk to us about the role that you guys play here?
So the children's pastors, we oversee 4 to 8-year-old and a small, volunteer staff with, we have 4 teachers now, trying to break that up into age groups. And for the most part, we design our own curriculum for that.
I would imagine that that's a bit of a challenge, creating your own curriculum. Can you talk more about that?
So when I say we create our own curriculum, we really give a lot of leeway to that. We try to just put in direction, right? Like we're going over all the disciples right now, but we're just kind of laying that out, and we've talked about different ways to study that, and then letting the teachers really come up with a 10-minute lesson, and then a small craft, small object lesson, something to help drive that home, and let them kind of have some leeway to that as well.
And Bridget, how does the division of labor or the management of the Sunday school department work between you and Billy?
So for the most part, we definitely work together on this. But when he does say that, we just kind of give that direction. We also try to make sure that we implement pastor's vision, and the vision for the church, through that curriculum with our teachers. So last year was the will of God at any cost. So we had 3 questions. It was the will, or what was their cost? So anytime that we would go over our curriculum or whatever it was that we were teaching at that point in time, we always had that question of what was their cost? And so we're trying to implement that into this year. So whenever we're talking about the disciples, we're talking about what does eternal look like for them? What did it look like for them at that point in time when they were following Christ, when they were discipling people? What did eternal cost them? So we always really try to make sure that we are very mindful when we do our curriculum, that it falls in line with the vision of the church.
So, Bridget, you mentioned you're implementing pastor's vision. Can you talk about receiving that vision, your understanding of the vision, and then how do you guys go about implementing those changes? Because everybody does things differently. And so how do you go about applying his vision?
So basically it would have just been like those particular questions, you know. So we haven't come up with a set of questions this year for eternal, but you know, basically since we're doing the disciples, it's what does eternal look like? What did it look like for them?
I'm the doer of the group, right? So when it comes to you know, when pastor announces his theme, you know, we're thinking, my mind, I'm going to, how are we going to decorate? How are we going to like make it engaging to go with the curriculum? When we ask the question, she's like, you know, how is it eternal to them? But what does eternal look like to a 4-year-old? What does eternal look like to a 5-year-old? We have to come up with the curriculum and the decor that makes them engaged in that question.
Yeah.
You know, she's more of the thought process person, and I'm more of the putting it on the wall, putting it in the classrooms person.
Right. And so, Pastor Longstreth, you are the visionary, the senior pastor for the church. What does it look like for you to impart your vision to the Sunday school leaders? And then how do you help to guide them along the way of establishing that culture?
That's a great question. First and foremost, when I think about, you know, first, I'm trying my best to follow thus saith the Lord. And you try to take what you know is a God vision and then pass it into your church culture and have that be built. So when I'm passing it down, let's say to the student ministry or the junior youth ministry, because what we'll call our like youth age education side of our church is 2/3 of our meetings here at the church today. So 2 out of 3 times they're hearing their education voices versus my voice, if that makes sense. So we have a morning education service, then we have a Wednesday night education service, and then the time that they're able to hear my voice would be during our worship service. So obviously we put a lot of precedence on ensuring that our teachers, especially our leaders of the departments, know, you know, what is the vision, how the vision needs to come across. And so as a pastor, I'm open to them. I give myself to them. We pour a lot of money into the department. I know a lot of churches might not have, and I say this with sensitivity, but a lot of churches might not be able to have the resources that we might have at this time. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so answering that question the other way I'd have to walk down a different path. But since I'm already on this way, we put a lot of effort. And you know what? I'll back that up and say we've always put a lot of effort into. And if it wasn't money, it was some sort of resources. So I'm going to not only sell them my vision, but I'm going to give them the resources in order to facilitate that vision. So I'm going to ensure that to the best of my ability, I have the parents behind them. To the best of my ability, I am reinforcing to the parents to try to reinforce to the children so that when they come into class, that vision at least is a little bit understood. I'm going to pass all the financial resources that I can in their direction. And they have come to me in the past and, hey, we need, more leaders, or we might need this, and we do our best to try to facilitate that. So creating a big space for this ministry is incredibly important.
How do you guys prepare for your Sunday and your Wednesday classes?
Well, I know primarily I teach Wednesday nights. On occasion, we switch off, but you have to prepare very differently whenever you have such a broad age group. When you're talking about Wednesday nights, we have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. That's a very large gap in what you have. So you know what? When you prepare, you try to do something fun. That's the biggest preparation you can do. And when you take a lesson, when you're talking about so like a deeper subject matter, right? And you're trying to make a 4-year-old understand that, and you're trying to make an 8-year-old understand that, and then somewhere in between that, you have fun with it. That's how I prepare on Wednesday nights. Bridget does really good on her worship. The worship is hers. She likes to get out there and she likes to act crazy with the kids, and she likes to jump around and all that. I'm trying to think of a way to have fun with a lesson.
And it's a definite challenge to have fun with them without, you're not babysitting.
Right.
And I've seen churches where that's somewhere it gets lost, is that the Sunday school department is looked at as the Sunday morning, Wednesday night babysitting service, where we're going to sit down, we're going to have some animal crackers, we're going to have some apple juice, and we're going to tell them like the same little patty cake Daniel in the Lion's Den story. And we're just going to do that to entertain them while the adults, but you guys don't do that.
No, absolutely not. I will say that lots of prayer definitely goes into this, because, I mean, we have to make sure that whatever it is that we are teaching them about the Word of God, that it sticks with them, and that they are truly receiving it, that they're having fun and they want to come back. So I do like to act crazy with the kids. That's the best part about that class, is just being able to, really show your childlike heart with them. But worship is definitely my favorite part. I do like to get my hands a little dirty, though, and teach every once in a while. So I taught on Wednesday, and they thought I was absolutely crazy, which is fine. But just having fun. We want them to love the Word of God. We want them to be excited when they come to class. One of the best things about this is when you have kids come up and they're telling you about a challenge that you had given them on Wednesday night or Sunday, that they went and talked to somebody about God, or that they did this or they did that, or I have a little girl that comes up to me and she tells me every single time she prayed and what she prayed for and how God told her what color of clothes to wear, because I told her that she needed to seek God in everything. So just being able to see the kids too, being able to hear them talk to you about stuff that you have talked with them about is rewarding.
What are some of the challenges that you guys face as the Sunday school pastors?
I definitely wish that everyone shared our burden for kids. I feel like sometimes that's a challenge, it seems like.
It's a labor of love, especially when I don't think people generally understand how much time goes into being prepared. You can pull out the standard patty cake lessons like you talked about, like, the easy Daniel and the Lion's Den or whatever. 2 weeks ago, though, we talked to them about being morally responsible.
Yeah. What
happens when nobody's looking? To generate that kind of lesson to children, it takes a lot.
Yeah, it's not just a, hour studying and you can just put that together. Like, you have to know how to think like them, or, to kind of get in their mind so that you can speak to them on the level that they're going to understand. Mm-hmm. And so that's just not a lesson where you can just get up and say, okay, what are you guys going to do?
Right. And something that you guys did this past year, you had a great big theme, like a Noah's Ark theme, and you guys went through and spent a whole bunch of time like decorating, and that the children's hallway looks incredible. It's just it looks like a wood panel lined with all of these different animals that are up. Can you walk us through, how did you come up with that idea? How did you implement it? You said that there's a lot of extra time involved. So tell us about the time and the resource costs for that.
I'll give you the thought process on this one, and then you can go into the timeline. But
okay.
So when Pastor came to us with the any cost theme, we were talking, okay, just about every person in the Bible, obviously there was a cost of some sort, but we were like, which person did we both feel like, and we prayed about it, and we started talking about Noah, and we were like, he literally had to give his whole life. People thought he was nuts. They thought he was crazy to build this ark, but he waited and he waited and he waited and he built and he built and he waited and he built. And we were like, this cost him, it could have cost him his family, but he still did it. And so after prayer, we were just like, we feel like this is the way to go with this, because if it wasn't for him and him responding to the call that God had given him and what he was asked to do, I mean, would humanity be here?
And Billy, you were going to tell us about the logistics costs.
We probably had somewhere between around 500 hours into it. Between working on it at home, here, when we could gather groups together, and we were able to pull some of the resources from the church, where we were able, a person here was able to print a lot of our animals on pill and stick vinyl, saved us. We couldn't have done it without that. So if you were to accurately put that cost in there, I mean, we probably would have been in the $2,000 range if we were to do that on our own.
But we have phenomenal teachers, though, that have just such a creative side that they were actually able to create some of those animals themselves out of foam and paint. And they look lifelike.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. I'm going to be sad to see it all go.
Do you want the elephant?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. And I will say that somebody donated so many stuffed animals. Mm-hmm. I don't know who donated all the stuffed animals and all that.
Right.
But my house personally has been the recipient of 30 of them.
Sure.
I don't know. Amelia adores stuffed animals.
Her stuffies.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And she'll come home. She's got a brand new one, and it's got a name, and it's got,
Yeah. So we have a lot of creative teachers. We also have ones that are doers. So, we have just a great team that was able to, make this all happen. So it wasn't just us. It was our team too. They put in lots of hours, lots of painting foam, using a hot iron to make the divots, to make it look like the wood. They did a phenomenal job at putting in the time, putting in the effort, making sure that it looked creative, making sure that it looked good. Pastor has a standard, and we always want to make sure that that we do our best, to make everything look top notch.
But that standard is, you were saying the standard and smiling a little bit about it, but that standard of excellence, because excellence is not a destination, it's the way that we do things.
Right.
And that's part of your application of the church culture as passed down from him to the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I stand afar. I get the privilege of being able to watch, as every pastor does. And so, you touch as many lives as you can, but you recognize that in order for you to function properly, you have to touch those that are going to touch as many lives. So I spend the majority of my time with the children now, being fun, being loving, messing around with them. I don't have to do what I did when 25 years ago, when I was directing Sunday school departments and creating characters like Harry Lightwave and a time machine. And, I don't have to do that anymore, because I have people that create an entire Noah's Ark, and it looks phenomenal. But from a pastor's standpoint, I'm just going to say it, I would not, and I got those non-verbal tomatoes that were thrown in my direction. When we moved into this present location, I told all of our student ministry, today's kids, the same thing. We will not put posters on our wall. Do not. I'd rather have it blank than have thoughtless, meaningless posters up on a wall. Don't buy anything from your local Christian bookstore and just put it up on the wall, because you can create something for that amount of money. You can create something. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to pour a ton of money into it to be creative. Create something and make it your own. And so when they say the standard of excellence, it's understood. Like, they know it. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, it's not just met, it's exceeded. So, I love to watch new families walk in and see, these decorations. It doesn't just say, hey, look at us, we're really awesome. It says, hey, you're awesome. Mm-hmm. Hey, these kids are awesome.
Right.
It doesn't say, hey, we matter. It says, hey, you matter.
Yeah.
And so every time they do something like this and they put a ton of effort into it, it's culturally sound, or it's culturally parallel to what we profess, that really those that walk through our doors matter.
As a parent of one of the kids that are in their Sunday school, what that level of effort says to me is that they have determined that my child is worth making the effort for. Yeah. And that just speaks volumes to me. And I can only imagine how, like, a brand new guest or a brand new friend feels about when they come in and they see the excellence that's in a Noah's Ark theme. And they say, wow, like, these people made an effort because my child is valuable enough mm-hmm. for them to take that time.
I will say, I think when we did our first theme of Mario in the Super Mario World, I think that kind of got us hooked on the way the kids responded to it.
It was next level.
They loved it.
I mean, this arc is next level too, but that was the initial.
That was our first time doing an actual theme for it.
It was next level. And the layout of our church is, we don't have a huge building. Right. So you're looking at 13,000 square feet. So it's a shotgun style. If you've never seen, to our audience has never seen our building, there's two wings in this shotgun down the center. And pretty much one side belongs to our Sunday school, except for a small office. And it's not that much space.
Right.
So to those that might say we don't have a ton of space, we might have more than when we had a storefront, but it's not that much space. Right. It's about how creative that you can be within the space that you have, if that makes sense. And so it was your idea, not mine, but your idea was we're going to make this whole hallway, like, we are going to light up our today's kids' world by every classroom that we have, the hallway that we have. It is going to scream like fun, engagement. There was a shock and awe factor, and all of the elements that we have just got finished talking about. So, yeah, you don't have to have everything. It's, but what can you do with what you do have? That's the most important.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Pastor Longstreth, I want to ask you this question. Since Billy and Bridget have taken over the position of Sunday school pastors, what spiritual growth and development have you seen in them since the point in time that they took over until now?
Yeah, you see a ton of growth. And some is just years within submitted ministry work, and other is an accumulation of, like, that school of hard knocks of just, that grunt, we got to get it done. And then they do an excellent job of educating themselves. I don't have to get on their back and say, hey, like, why aren't you growing? They're plugged in, they're engaged in the church. Their whole life is not just about Sunday school, which I like. It's not just about today's kids, which I like. They're involved in a ton of other areas at church, and incredibly important to those areas as well. And so you see this multifaceted growth. It's not just growing in the Sunday school ministry and, we'll get everything we can out of that and then we'll go into some other ministry. It's like they poured themselves into kingdom. And if you pour yourself into kingdom, it requires kingdom growth, and that has to be multifaceted. So they're a part of the important aspect of how worship is done here at the church today. That neither one of them sing, neither one of them play an instrument. In terms of like at least weekly, maybe play behind the scenes, I don't know, but they're both down in our altar area, and they're both worshiping, they're both engaged there, and so just even sitting here on the podcast, I think this is a great example, and I'm watching both of them. I had the privilege of baptizing Bridget. Were you 16 at the time? 15 or 16?
16, I believe.
Yeah. 16. And so I had the privilege of baptizing her, and I've watched her from within the Church Today system. And then here within the last 5 to 7, 8 years, Billy has just been integral to the church. But just watching them through this podcast, I'm like, man, the maturity that they have, just in the way that they're answering and the way that they're bringing about what is important, not only to the church, but, to these kids and beyond.
And could you go first, Bridget? What spiritual and personal growth have you seen since assuming the duties of the children's pastors?
So, not too long after we got married, we took on the role of children's pastors. And so there's been a lot of growth, not only in my life, but as a family as a whole. And then trying to grow into a children's pastor. So a lot of growth. We've had a lot of hard times within these past couple of years, but you have to be in the Word. You have to study. It leaves no time for you to be selfish. You have to be very selfless in this ministry. It has to be about the kingdom. So with that being said, there has been a lot of spiritual growth for me, not only as myself, but as a wife, as a mom, as a leader. And then, just always trying to make sure that we're putting the kingdom first, and that he's, set that expectation for us, as leaders to be the best that we can. And so always trying to make sure that we are being the best, that we're doing our best, and that we're giving our best. So it's been a lot of growth.
Talk about your growth, Billy.
I think as being in this role, my growth has come from the mandate of studying. Because if you we do not use bought curriculum here. And if you came from the world of bought curriculum, it puts you into a roll with it kind of attitude. When you do not use bought curriculum, you have to be right with it.
Now, so I'm curious about when you're saying bought curriculum, I've got this, that you design the curriculum, but I want to pull back to a comment that you made before about understanding like the spread between a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old and the preparation that has to go in understanding how a 4-year-old learns, understanding how they perceive something, which is very different than an 8-year-old, which is very different than a 12-year-old. So I would imagine that you've had to educate yourself on basically early childhood education in order to effectively implement a lot of this stuff.
A little bit, and some of it goes back just as simply as changing what version of the Bible you read to help get words implanted. Because, just know, a 4-year-old, the these and the thous don't really hit with them, right? And so if you, how would you say that?
That's really good. I think the simplistic nature of that's good.
You're making it accessible.
Maybe that's the best way to say it, is the simplistic nature of it. If you go back and read the ICB, the International Children's Bible, it brings words that you can use. where even if you go to the New King James Version, that's not the level of understanding is not there, right? So I like to read the International Children's Bible because it gives you language to use to that level. And then you do have to look at, and Bridget is way better at this than me, because sometimes I don't have the amount of patience I should have. But when you break it down and you watch them have the aha moments with it, it is definitely a learning curve.
So, Bridget, you used a word that has come up over and over and over again. The word selfless keeps coming up, that it's got to be about more than just me. Mm-hmm. So looking at the selfless and giving and giving and giving, what do you guys do to prevent from getting burnt out?
Oh, that is a great question. Honestly, I feel like when we start feeling those moments of the burnout where we're just like, oh man, we're tired, we switch things up. So whether it's the curriculum, whether it's our worship songs, and I'm like, let's do something completely different. We may just do like a really cool hangout night where we just get together and we've played board games, we've taken them outside. We still have that like small little devotional time. That's the best way to say it. Small little devotional. Get in the Word of God, and then we just have fun, because doing the same thing over and over, the lesson, the worship, and then the object lesson, sometimes you can just feel like, whew, like this is too much of the same thing all the time. So, we want them to love on one another. We want them to learn how to interact with each other, and us do the same with them. So just being able to have, I guess, some fellowship together and just playing and hanging out. So that's one of the ways that I prevent myself from burnout. Sister Vernon had wrote a book. I believe it's Pastor, birthing the burden.
Yeah, I think it's Birthing Your Burden or something.
For children's ministry. We have that book. So sometimes when I'm feeling that, I read that because her story's in there. And it's kind of a good reminder of why we do what we do. And then also getting into the Word. And sometimes I'm like, Lord, I need a refreshing. I need you to remind me, why you have me here. So just asking him for some guidance too, and just making sure that we stay in the Word and that we are making sure that we're answering the call that he has given us.
That was beautiful. Pastor, when you're looking for a children's pastor, what would be characteristics of people or a person that they should be looking for?
So if you want a children's pastor, exhibit traits, passions, exhibit characteristics that children's ministry is critical. Birth that burden by being that. If you don't show it, how are they going to follow you there? So quit looking for the person, be the person. And if you'll be the person, A, God will supply the person. B, you'll exemplify the characteristics of the expectation for somebody to follow. Bridget said it earlier on, like there is a standard of excellence. How do they know that? How do they know that? It's not just because our church looks clean. It's because we across the board have exhibited those characteristics. So you'll see people that, you'll see people that have certain traits. And I knew when this couple was getting together, I knew that, okay, like I just found the next, and it wasn't a very difficult sell. It took some time to pray about it, but it wasn't a difficult sell. So, but at that point in time, I know, because I put in personally that time, and others have too, what is necessary, and whatever, I can keep going on and on and on. But yeah, I mean, it's not complicated. They're there, and if they're not there yet, you're there. So do it.
And what advice would you guys give? Somebody's looking to assume that children's pastor role. What advice would you guys give to them?
I would say you find and use your resources. Without, I don't know, can I give shameless plugs? I mean, there's people out there like Josh Combs that has he's got books on lessons. He's got books on object lessons. They're fairly inexpensive. You have people like Sister Vernon that have books out there that can help guide and direct you. And I would say 100% find and use your resources.
Absolutely.
That's my advice.
Apostolic, they are the Pentecostal Publishing House?
PPH.
Yeah. So they have different resources out for that as well. And then Sister Alexander, she puts out videos, tons and tons of YouTube videos of how to birth that ministry, how to keep teachers engaged, just lots of different resources for that. But I would also just say that make sure that you're staying in prayer. Just make sure that you have a burden for children when you go into this ministry, because you get lots of different ages, you get lots of different personalities, and you truly have to love what you do. You truly have to love the children and want to see them do great things for the kingdom, because we tell our kids every chance that we get that they're so important. They're so important to the kingdom. They don't even realize the impact that they have on their friends, on their families. I've seen kids come in, and the whole reason that the families are here are because of the kids. The kids want to know Jesus. They want to know more about God, and they're the whole reason that family is even here in church. So they have no idea how important they are to the kingdom. So just make sure that you have that burden when you come into this ministry. Make sure you're talking with your leadership. Make sure you're talking with your pastor. Make sure you're staying submitted to your pastor. Billy and I was talking about that earlier. It's hard, but you have to make sure that you're submitted to your pastor.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Bottom Half is Red. Listen, I hope you have enjoyed your time with us today and gained something of value. If you love what you heard today, please do not forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. This helps us. Your feedback is incredibly crucial, and we want to improve on what we're doing and to bring you the best content possible. You can find us on Facebook, look us up, Instagram, even YouTube at The Bottom Half is Red. Hey, be sure to check the episode description for any links to any resources that we have mentioned during the show. You don't want to miss out. This podcast is a production of The Church Today here in the great city of Tulsa, and the executive producer is our very own David Tandera. I hope you've had a fantastic time, and we look forward to having you with us again on our next episode of The Bottom Half is Red. We'll see you then.